Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight we're travelling to British Malaya, a land of endless heat, sweat and empire. You are a labourer, promised wages and a better life, working from dawn to dusk beneath the colonial sun. And when the work becomes too much to bear, you find a green leaf, a small mercy that helps you keep going. But mercy in empire is never free. This is the horrifying life of a Kratom addict in British Malaya. Before we step into that world, do me one small favour. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. If you'd prefer these stories without ads, you can join the Patreon. It's linked in the description. And if you want the ultimate immersive experience, consider using a pair of wireless earbuds. They're comfortable, discreet, and designed so you can wear them even while sleeping. I've linked my favourite pair plus other sleep tools in the description. Now, lie back, get comfortable, let's begin. You arrive in Malaya after weeks at sea, the salt still crusted in your hair. The ship had smelled of sweat, coal and sickness. Men from your district slept shoulder to shoulder on the deck, speaking of wages that seemed to grow larger with every rumour. When the coast finally appeared, a line of green rising out of mist, you thought it looked almost holy. But as the vessel groaned toward the docks, that green darkened and the air changed. It was thicker here, heavy enough to taste. The first breath feels like swallowing water. The recruiters in Madras had promised clean quarters and fair pay. They'd spoken of British order, of steady meals, of work that would make a man proud. You believed them because you wanted to. Your family's debts had grown like vines around your throat, and this place was supposed to be a knife to cut them free. Instead, you step into a wall of heat, so alive it hums. The sun burns through the mist as you join the line on the pier. Men and women from villages you've never heard of, all carrying the same empty hope in their eyes. At the customs table, a white officer sits with a ledger and a stamp. His face glows red with drink, and his words come fast and sharp. You hand him your contract, already softened by sweat. He glances at it once before pressing his seal over your name. The stamp lands like a verdict. You are no longer the man who left home. You are labour, paid for, and owned for a year. Someone behind you coughs hard enough to bend over, but the line doesn't pause. An overseer rides ahead of the group as you're marched inland. The road winds between palms and bamboo, the ground slick with yesterday's rain. Somewhere far behind, the ocean is still moving, but its sound is gone. Around you rise endless rows of young rubber trees, thin trunks marked with clean diagonal cuts that glisten like open wounds. The air smells of sap, sweet at first, then nauseating. A cart passes carrying sacks of rice and barrels of lime, drawn by oxen so thin their ribs shine. You follow until the path widens into a clearing of long wooden barracks with roofs of tin and palm. Inside, the heat multiplies. The air stands still, thick with the smell of sweat and smoke from cooking fires. Each man is given a space just wide enough for a mat and a bowl. You sit beside someone from another part of India, a man with dark eyes and the quiet of resignation already settled in his face. He nods but doesn't speak. The noise inside the barrack never stops. Coughing, muttering, the shuffle of feet, the drip of water through the roof. When the lights go out, it feels darker than night itself. Morning begins with metal on metal, a pipe struck with a stick. The sound cuts through sleep like a blade. You wake drenched, your body still aching from the voyage. The men shuffle outside into grey light, while a British clerk counts heads. The overseer's horse stamps impatiently as he calls for order. You are handed a dull knife and a tin bucket and pointed toward the field. The others move quickly, showing you the rhythm. Score the bark, angle the cut, let the sap bleed. It gathers in the cups tied to each trunk, pale and viscous. Mosquitoes rise in clouds around your ankles. By midday the ground is slick with rain, the air smelling of wet bark and sweat. The overseer's commands roll over you in short English bursts. Faster. Again. Don't stop. You don't know the words, only the tone. The overseers retreat to the shade when the storm thickens, leaving the rest of you to work through it. The rain runs down your spine and fills your shoes, but you keep moving. You're told every drop of sap lost is deducted from pay, though no one has ever seen the full account. When the bell finally sounds, you can barely lift your arms. The food line snakes outside the cookhouse. Rice boiled until it turns to paste, a spoon of lentils if the pot hasn't run out. You eat fast because the insects swarm the bowl if you hesitate. Beside you, someone laughs softly, a sound without joy, and mutters that the pay will vanish before it reaches home. You look down at your hands, swollen and raw, and say nothing. Evening brings no coolness. You wash in a narrow canal that smells of clay and rot, the water warmer than your skin. The men joke weakly as they scrub, their laughter too tired to rise above the crickets. When you return to the barrack, the air inside feels heavier, thick with smoke from a small cooking fire. Someone plays a tune on a single string instrument, and for a moment it almost sounds like something from home. You lie on your mat and listen until it fades beneath the snores and coughs. The next day repeats the last. You learn to move by instinct, to work without thought. Time shrinks into labour, broken only by the clang of the meal bell and the cracking voice of the overseer. The world narrows to the arc of your blade and the trickle of white sap into the cup. The cuts heal and reopen. The days blend together until you stop counting. When someone collapses in the field, 2 men carry him to the shade and go back to work. By evening his place has been filled. The ache that began in your shoulders spreads to your back, your thighs, your lungs. The air here never empties, it only thickens. You dream of wind that moves and water that tastes clean. At dusk you see the sun fall behind the trees, turning the sap silver. The overseer rides past one last time, marking something in his book. His boots are clean despite the mud. You drag yourself back to the barrack with the others, your legs trembling, your mind wrapped in fog. The sound of insects fills the night like static. You lie down, too tired to eat, too sore to sleep. The ceiling above you is warped and stained from years of rain. Through a crack you can see the outline of a single leaf trembling in the wind outside, green against the dying light. You watch it until your vision blurs, and you finally pass out. When you wake, the world is still dark. The air smells of smoke and wet earth, and the night insects have only just fallen silent. Your body feels as though it's been carved from the mud you sleep on, heavy, unresponsive, unwilling. The others stir around you, muttering, coughing, pulling on damp shirts that never truly dry. You rub your eyes and try to remember the line of trees waiting outside, each one a wound you'll reopen before the sun burns through the haze. Your stomach growls, but the food queue has already begun. There is no time to wait. You tie your ragged cloth at the waist and step out into the mist, where the ground squelches beneath your bare feet. One of the older men stands beside the door, chewing slowly. He's from a different part of India. You can tell by the words he mutters under his breath. When he sees you, he holds out a handful of dark green leaves. "For the morning," he says, voice low, the Tamil thick with something else underneath. You hesitate, thinking of the overseer's rules, but curiosity wins. You take one. It's soft, veined, smelling faintly of rainwater and iron. You bite down and gag at the bitterness. It tastes like earth that's been burned, like copper coins held too long in the mouth. The man chuckles. "Wait," he says, turning toward the trees. "It helps." By the time the sun begins to rise, you understand what he meant. The tightness behind your eyes eases. Your muscles no longer feel like sacks of stone. The dizziness that followed you since the first day fades. The overseer's voice, sharp, barking English, reaches your ears and then slides off, like water on oil. The others begin to move, shoulders hunched beneath the weight of buckets and knives. You move with them, and for the first time, you keep pace. The morning light cuts through the mist, turning it gold, and even the heat feels less cruel. You chew until the leaf is dry in your mouth, its taste clinging to the back of your throat, a strange mix of relief and shame. Hours pass, but the fatigue doesn't arrive the way it usually does. When the overseer shouts, you don't flinch. The sap flows clean and steady down the bark into the waiting cups. You find yourself working with precision, almost rhythm, slice, pause, angle, move. You even notice details you'd never seen before. The slow drip of latex forming milky beads, the smell of crushed bark, the rustle of monkeys somewhere beyond the tree line. The pain in your arms is still there, but it sits further away now, muffled behind the leaf's quiet calm. You wonder how long this feeling will last. When the noon meal arrives, you eat faster than usual. The rice tastes better somehow, or maybe you just notice less how bland it is. The man who gave you the leaf smiles faintly. Good? He asks. You nod. He tells you the name in his dialect, Kratom, sometimes Kakuam, and then, in broken English, he adds, the British call it Kratom. He says the word carefully, as if it doesn't belong in his mouth. Grows everywhere, he explains, tearing another leaf between his fingers. Only fools work without it. You glance toward the overseers, eating in their shaded quarters, their plates heavy with meat. He follows your gaze and shrugs. They have their own medicine, he says. This one is ours. By late afternoon, the air is thick again, the humidity pressing on your lungs. Normally you'd slow down by now, the weight of the day dragging at your limbs. But not today. The leaf hums softly in your blood, pushing you forward. The overseer nods as he rides past, eyes hidden behind round spectacles. You realise he's never nodded before. The small gesture makes something twist inside you. Pride, maybe, or the strange satisfaction of being seen. The others keep their heads down, chewing quietly, pretending not to notice. You decide to do the same. When the rain comes, it's almost a relief. It begins as a whisper, then thickens into a curtain that soaks you through. The sky darkens, the world turning the colour of smoke. Normally you'd curse the mud, the way it drags at your legs, but now it barely matters. You keep cutting until your hands are slick with sap and rainwater. The leaf has dulled the ache in your fingers, blurred the edge of every hardship. It feels as if the world itself has slowed. The noise of the overseer, the thud of the buckets, even the pounding of your heart blending into a single steady rhythm. By the time the bell sounds, night is creeping in again. You stumble back to the barracks, your body trembling, but not from exhaustion. The others talk softly as they hang their soaked shirts, steam rising from their skin. The man with the leaves sits near the door, sorting another handful under the weak light of a lantern. He offers you two this time. You take them without hesitation. The bitterness is almost pleasant now, familiar. You sit on your mat, knees drawn up, chewing slowly as the world outside turns to darkness. The taste lingers long after the first leaf is gone. It coats your tongue, your teeth, even your breath. You lie back, staring at the rafters, listening to the rain drumming on the tin roof. For the first time since you arrived, your thoughts drift instead of collapse. You think of home, the colour of the soil after the monsoon, the sound of your mother grinding spices in the early morning. The images are hazy, distant, but they don't hurt the way they used to. The leaf keeps them soft, safe, untouchable. Someone nearby begins to hum an old lullaby, the kind sung on long journeys. The melody slips between languages, half memory, half invention. You chew the second leaf and taste the faint sweetness beneath the bitterness. It reminds you of sugarcane, of something simple and alive. Around you, the other men fall asleep, one by one, their breathing slow and even. The lantern flickers out, leaving the barracks in darkness. You close your eyes, still chewing. The rhythm of the rain fades into the rhythm of your heartbeat, the two sounds merging until you can't tell them apart. Your body feels light, your thoughts steady, your fear dulled to a whisper. The leaf's warmth settles somewhere deep inside. Not joy, but something close to peace. As sleep begins to take you, the last thing you taste is that bitterness. Strangely comforting, strangely kind, and you think, just for a moment, that maybe you can survive this place after all. The days stop feeling separate. Dawn and dusk begin to blur into one long, fevered stretch of labour and chewing. Each morning, before the first clang of metal calls you to work, you reach for a leaf already waiting beside your mat. You keep them hidden under a scrap of cloth, stolen from the field during rest breaks, still damp from rain or dew. The first chew wakes your body before the overseer's shout can. The second steadies your hands before they even begin to shake. Work no longer feels like punishment, not at first. The ache that used to hollow you out each afternoon now waits until nightfall. The leaf gives you a kind of quiet energy, a rhythm that matches the plantation's endless pulse. You learn to work faster without realizing it, your knife slicing through bark with practiced precision. Even the overseer seems pleased. He rides past less often now, his shadow no longer falling over you with the same weight. You hear his whip, but it sounds distant, like thunder beyond the trees. The world narrows to the sound of knives cutting, sap dripping, and your own slow chewing. When the bell rings for meals, you no longer feel hunger the way you used to. The rice tastes of nothing, and even the thin stew fails to register as food. But it doesn't matter. The leaf is enough. The men around you say the same thing. Some chew it openly now, rolling the green between their palms, laughing softly at jokes no one else would understand. The overseer pretends not to see. Perhaps he thinks it harmless, or perhaps he knows that anything that keeps the workers moving is better than punishment. You start carrying the leaves in a small pouch tied around your waist. The habit feels private at first, even noble, something earned, something that belongs to you alone. The others tease you gently, calling you leaf mouth, but soon they ask for their share. You give it freely, feeling a flicker of pride when they thank you. For a few weeks, the barracks hum with strange contentment. Even the evening songs sound lighter. You catch yourself smiling, though you're not sure why. But it takes more now. 2 leaves where 1 used to suffice. 3, sometimes 4, before your limbs feel light again. The old man who first shared the habit tells you it's normal. The body forgets quickly, he says. He offers you stronger leaves from deeper in the jungle, darker green and almost sweet. They burn your throat, but the calm that follows is deeper, slower, heavier. You tell yourself it's fine, that you'll stop when the season ends, when your contract is done. But you've begun to understand that the work never really ends, only changes shape. The nights grow longer as the monsoon returns. The air inside the barracks feels like warm breath. You lie awake, chewing until your jaw aches, listening to the rain hammering the tin roof. The leaves make the hours tolerable, even beautiful sometimes. The sound of rainfall seems softer, the world more forgiving. But when the supply runs low, the calm cracks open. Your muscles twitch as though something inside is crawling to get out. Sleep refuses you. The next morning you chew twice as much to silence it. You begin sneaking out after curfew, waiting until the guards' lanterns pass down the path. The forest beyond the plantation smells rich and alive, thick with wet leaves and the hum of unseen insects. You wade through the dark, cutting new branches yourself, fingers slick with sap. Each rustle sounds like a footstep. Each shadow feels like an accusation. But when you taste the leaf, fresh, sharp, still wet with its own life, the fear melts away. You chew as you walk back, the bitterness numbing your tongue. By the time you return to your mat, the tremors have quieted, and your heartbeat feels human again. The next day, the overseer notices your red eyes. Drink less, he says, mistaking one vice for another. You nod obediently. He doesn't know that you haven't touched anything but leaves and water for days. The others have started to fade too. Their faces thin, their eyes sink deep, but they keep moving, the plantation thriving on the rhythm of addiction. Sometimes you wonder if the overseer knows, if the overseers in their shaded verandas see the way the workers' mouths stain green. Perhaps they do. Perhaps it's cheaper than medicine. Weeks slip away unnoticed. Your hands harden, the skin darkening from both sun and sap. You speak less, think less, chew more. The leaf fills the spaces where thought used to live. On good days, it makes the world manageable. The heat, the hunger, the noise. On bad days, it only makes you forget that you once dreamed of leaving. You no longer write letters home. There's nothing to say that would make sense to anyone outside this heat. Sometimes you catch sight of your reflection in the canal water at dusk. Your face looks thinner than you remember, your eyes dull. You think about the boy who left India, the one who believed in wages, who thought the sea voyage was an escape. He feels like another man entirely, someone you've buried under leaves. When the overseer calls your name, it takes you a moment to respond, as if he's calling to someone else. The leaf keeps you steady, but never satisfied. The more you chew, the shorter the relief lasts. The mornings arrive too soon, the nights stretch too long. You've started hiding leaves in your shoes, beneath your mat, anywhere you can keep them close. You tell yourself it's precaution, but you know it's fear. Without them, your hands begin to shake before the sun rises. The tremor starts small, a flicker in your fingers, a pulse beneath the skin, but grows until even holding the knife feels uncertain. One evening, you share a handful with a younger worker, new to the plantation. He asks what it is, and you tell him it helps. He laughs after his first chew, the bitterness catching him by surprise. You see yourself in his grin, that first flicker of relief, that lie of control. You want to warn him, but the words won't come. The leaf won't let them. You only tell him to keep it quiet. He nods, still smiling, and you know he's already caught. That night, the barracks fall silent sooner than usual. The rain has stopped, leaving the air heavy and still. You lie awake, your mouth dry, your thoughts unsteady. You reach for your pouch and find it empty. For a moment, panic floods your chest, sharp and wild. You dig through your belongings, through your rags, your bowl, your mat, until you find a single crushed fragment pressed flat against the wood. You chew it greedily, eyes closed, hands trembling. The taste is faint, almost gone, but it's enough to calm the shaking. The sound of distant thunder rolls through the trees, soft and low. You lie back, breathing hard, feeling the leaf dissolve to nothing. The tremor fades, replaced by a hollow stillness that isn't peace but absence. Time passes. It's now been months since you first started using Kratom, and it has begun to take its toll on your body. The first sign is the ache behind your ribs, a dull, slow pulse that begins before dawn. It isn't sickness, not exactly, but something that feels alive beneath your skin. You wake with the sensation that your own body has turned against you. The air in the barrack is heavy and still, thick with the smell of sweat and kerosene. You sit up slowly, the motion sending a ripple of pain through your limbs. The world tilts for a moment before settling. The others are still sleeping, their chests rising and falling in uneven rhythm. You reach under your mat, fingers closing around the small pouch of leaves you hid days ago. The leaves have dried, curling inward like fists. You chew one without thinking. The bitterness floods your mouth, familiar and sharp. It helps, not enough to make you well, but enough to make you move. Outside, the morning fog presses low over the trees. The overseer's whistle cuts through it like a blade. You join the line of men trudging toward the fields, your legs moving before your mind catches up. Every step sends a dull throb through your stomach, a reminder that the leaf no longer cures hunger. It only quiets it. You chew another piece as the work begins. The taste turns metallic, almost sour. You can feel the nausea rising, but you swallow it down and focus on the motion. Slice, collect, carry, repeat. The rhythm steadies you for a while, until it doesn't. By midday, the pain has returned in new places. Your shoulders spasm without warning. Your jaw tightens until your teeth ache. The heat presses down like a physical weight. You watch the sap slide down the tree's bark and think of your own sweat. The same pale colour, the same slow drip. You tell yourself the leaf will help again if you just chew more, but it's harder now to believe it. The old man who once gave you your first leaf passes by, his eyes hollowed by fatigue. He doesn't need to ask what's wrong, he can see it. You both know the same truth. There's no comfort left, only the chase for a few hours of borrowed strength. When the lunch bell rings, you don't eat. The thought of food makes your stomach twist. You sit in the shade of a rubber tree, gnawing at another leaf. The bitterness coats your tongue like ash. Across the field, the overseer smokes a cigarette under a canvas awning, watching the men from a distance. His shirt is pressed, his boots dry. You wonder if he can tell how close you are to collapse. You wonder if he would care. The smoke from his cigarette drifts upward, thin and white, almost beautiful against the dark canopy. The afternoon stretches endlessly. Your muscles refuse to obey the same rhythm they once did. Each swing of the knife feels heavier, slower. The overseer's shouts grow sharper. He thinks you're lazy. He doesn't see that you're breaking. When the bell finally sounds again, you nearly drop where you stand. You walk back to the barracks in silence, your hands shaking so badly that you have to clench them into fists to keep them still. The path swims before your eyes, a tunnel of green and gold light, the air thick enough to choke on. Inside, the others are already lying down. Some are too tired to even remove their shirts. You sit on your mat and breathe through the nausea that won't fade. The leaf doesn't help anymore, but you chew it anyway, not for strength, but for fear of what will happen if you stop. The act has become mechanical, a reflex. The bitterness fills your mouth, and you feel a flicker of calm, but it fades within minutes, replaced by something colder. You press a hand to your stomach and feel it tighten like rope. That night, the fever returns. It's not the same as before. It burns low, steady, almost patient. You lie half awake, shivering despite the heat. The mat damp beneath you. Every muscle hums with exhaustion. You reach for another leaf in the dark, fumbling with shaking fingers. The first bite makes your jaw ache. The second brings tears to your eyes. The relief is smaller each time, as if the leaf itself resents you now. You remember when it used to taste like salvation. Now it tastes like debt. By morning, your gums are sore from chewing. The skin around your nails has grown raw, the cuticles bleeding from constant work. You wash your face in the canal, but the reflection staring back doesn't look like you. The eyes are dull, the mouth cracked, the cheeks hollow. You feel older than you should, as though the heat and the leaf together have burned years from you. The water ripples and breaks the image before you can look longer. You stand and return to the fields, the knife heavy in your hand. The overseer's horse passes close, splattering mud across your legs. You barely react. His voice sounds far away now, muffled and meaningless. You've learned how to nod at the right moments, without really hearing him. The work continues. The plantation hums with its usual rhythm, blades cutting, buckets clanging, sap dripping into metal tins. You move through it like a ghost, chewing when you have to, resting when you can. Each swallow leaves your throat drier than before. In the evenings, you've started noticing small things you didn't before. The way your fingers twitch even when you're still. The way your vision blurs when you stand too quickly. Sometimes you wake to find your hands clenched tight, the nails digging into your palms hard enough to draw blood. You rub them together to stop the tremor, but it only grows worse with each passing day. The others notice but say nothing. They're too busy hiding their own weakness. The nights bring no rest. You lie on your mat, staring at the ceiling beams, feeling the ache creep up your spine like something alive. Sleep comes only in flashes, broken, fevered, full of strange dreams where the trees whisper your name. You wake with the taste of the leaf already in your mouth, though you don't remember taking it. The air feels heavier each morning, pressing down as if the whole sky has lowered itself to your chest. You begin to realize that there's no space left between the leaf and the work, that one feeds the other in an endless loop. Without the leaf, you can't move. Without the work, you can't get the leaf. The thought settles over you like dust, too fine to shake off. You stop counting the days, stop hoping for the season to end. Even if it did, you know you'd carry the craving wherever you went. It has become your shadow, following you through the heat. Late one night, you wake to the sound of your own teeth chattering. The air is warm, but your body is cold, the sweat on your skin drying in patches. You try to hold your hands still, but they tremble, as though caught in some invisible current. You reach under the mat for your pouch, but your fingers can't find it. Panic rises in your throat. When you finally tear it open, there's only one leaf left. You take it anyway. The shaking eases. That's all that matters for now. You'll have to find a way to get more tomorrow. You lie back exhausted, your breath coming in shallow bursts. The barrack is silent, except for the distant hiss of rain outside. You stare into the dark, your hands still trembling slightly against your chest. Somewhere deep inside, you feel the truth settle like a stone. The leaf owns you now, as surely as the estate does. Weeks pass in a blur of heat and rain, and then the weather changes. The downpours thin, the roads harden, and the canals run lower, leaving their banks rimmed with clay. By the time the rains give way to the dull brightness of the dry months, rumours begin quietly, passed between men who no longer trust their own voices. You hear them at night, after work, when the air inside the barracks is thick with smoke and the slow drip of sweat. Someone says the British are planning a new law, one that will forbid the use of Kratom, the one thing that keeps you alive on this plantation. Another claims he overheard a clerk in the estate office say the order has already been signed in the capital. At first, no one believes it. The leaf feels too small, too ordinary to provoke an empire. It grows wild, unbothered by borders or permission. How could they outlaw something that even the wind scatters freely? But the traders begin to disappear. The man who used to bring bundles wrapped in banana leaves stops showing up. The market road that once smelled of spice and sap grows strangely empty. Those who return from town speak of patrols, of questions asked in English, too fast to understand. A few say the colonial police have begun burning the trees. The reason shifts depending on who tells the story. Some say the British call it dangerous to health. Others whisper that the government wants workers to buy opium instead, the drug that fills their coffers. But none of you could ever afford it. The overseers tax it, ration it, claim it as medicine, the same way they claim the land. You don't know which story to believe, but every version tastes of the same truth. Someone wants control over your pain. A few days later, you go looking for the wild kratom trees that once grew behind the canal, the ones you used to harvest yourself. You find only stumps and ash. The soil around them is blackened, the air still carrying the faint, sweet scent of burned leaves. You run your fingers through the dirt and feel something brittle beneath the surface, a half-charred root, still green at its centre. The overseer's men did their work well. Even mercy isn't allowed to grow wild anymore. Within a week, the patrols start appearing near the estate. They arrive at dawn, 2 men in pressed khaki uniforms, on sweating horses, rifles strapped to their backs. They ask questions about native stimulants, about the men who sell them. The overseer nods politely, assures them his workers are loyal and obedient. When the patrol leaves, he calls for everyone to gather, his tone clipped and sharp. The government forbids the chewing of this leaf, he says, pronouncing the word as if it were filth. Anyone caught will face punishment. No one answers. You keep your head down and feel the pouch hidden inside your shirt grow heavier, as though it has learned the meaning of fear. The nights grow quieter. The usual murmurs, men humming, arguing, laughing, fade into silence. The workers move slower during the day, their hands trembling from the sudden absence. The overseer doesn't understand. He thinks you're lazy, that the fields are breeding idleness. You can see it in his face when he rides past. The confusion of a man who can't imagine the pain of another body. Sometimes you wonder if he even knows what the leaf is for, or if it's enough for him to hate it, simply because it isn't his. By the second week, the first arrest comes. It happens on a neighbouring plantation, though the story travels faster than the patrols themselves. A man was caught with a handful of fresh leaves hidden inside his tool bag. They say the constables tied his wrists and paraded him through town before locking him in the stocks near the market square. To make an example, the traders whisper. Whether he's still alive, no one knows. The story changes each time it's told, but the ending is always the same. The man vanishes, and the trees around his hut are burned. You start to dream of the leaf. In your sleep, the veins pulse like rivers of light, and the scent of it fills your lungs until you wake choking. You reach for the pouch beneath your mat and find it almost empty. You chew what remains slowly, stretching the habit across the days like a ration of breath. When it runs out entirely, the world begins to tilt. Your limbs feel heavy, your head light, your stomach turning in slow sour waves. You know the sickness now, the same hollow trembling that once sent you running for relief. Only this time, there's nowhere left to run. Then the constables come again. It's early morning, the air still grey with mist. You're in the field, blade in hand, when you hear the sound of hooves on wet soil. Two of them ride past the rows, stopping near the shed where tools are kept. One dismounts and begins searching the baskets stacked against the wall. The overseer watches from a distance, his arms crossed, pretending indifference. The workers lower their heads, slicing faster, hoping invisibility might be enough. You see one of the younger men, barely more than a boy, hesitate. His hand goes to his shirt, where something bulges faintly beneath the fabric. The constable notices. The boy freezes as the man approaches, his boots sinking into the mud. The officer shouts in English, a word you can't understand, but whose meaning is unmistakable. The boy tries to explain, to offer the bundle, but the constable slaps it from his hands. The leaves scatter across the ground, bright against the dark soil. For a moment, everyone stares. The boy, the constable, the overseer, as if the leaves themselves have committed the crime. Then the blows begin. The rifle butt cracks against the boy's shoulder, once, twice, until he collapses. The overseer says nothing. No one moves to help. The workers stand motionless, knives dangling at their sides. You can hear the sap dripping into tins, the wind rustling through the canopy, the quiet, sickening rhythm of impact. When it ends, the constables drag the boy away by his arms, his feet leaving long streaks through the mud. The overseer tells everyone to return to work. His voice doesn't rise, it doesn't have to. The sound carries perfectly in the stillness. You keep working, though your hands shake so violently you can barely hold the knife. The sap flows unevenly from the cut, running down the bark in crooked lines. The boy's footprints are still visible, half filled with water. Above you, smoke drifts from the far side of the plantation, where the patrols have begun burning more trees. The smell of it lingers, sharp and green, mixing with the scent of rubber and sweat. When the bell rings for midday, no one speaks. The field hums with the usual noise of work, but it feels wrong now, subdued, careful, as if the air itself has learned to be afraid. That night, you lie awake listening to the rain tapping on the roof. The barrack feels emptier, though no one has left yet. You imagine the boy somewhere in a cell, or perhaps already gone. You chew a fragment of what remains of your stash. The relief never comes. You swallow anyway, just to feel something familiar. The plantation creaks in the wind like a ship adrift. Eventually, you realize the last of your leaves are gone. You knew this day would come, but knowing does nothing to soften it. The pouch beneath your mat is empty, only a few crumbs clinging to the cloth. You press your fingers against the fabric, as if the pressure might conjure something from the air, but there is nothing left to take, nothing left to chew. The craving feels like heat under your skin, restless and directionless. A fire that has forgotten where it started. You sit up too fast and the world swims, the barrack tilting like a deck in high wind. The others are asleep, though you can tell by the way they breathe that none of them are resting easy. You try to lie back down, but the mat is soaked through with sweat. Every part of you hurts. When the bell clangs before dawn, you can't stand. Your muscles spasm in waves, twisting tight and then releasing, only to seize again. You press your face into the mat to muffle the sound, afraid the overseer will hear you if you cry out. The air smells faintly of rotten rubber, the usual scent of morning, but now it's unbearable. The odour feels sharp, metallic, like rust in your throat. You try to swallow, but even your tongue feels raw. The hunger is gone. What replaces it isn't hunger or thirst or pain, but something wider, emptier. It's as if your body is hollowing itself from the inside out, carving room for the absence. By mid-morning, the heat thickens. The workers step over you on their way to the fields, some glancing down, others pretending not to see. You don't blame them. The same thing is happening to all of you, just at different speeds. You pull your knees to your chest, trying to stop the shaking. It doesn't help. Every muscle seems to move on its own, twitching and jerking in revolt. The sound of work drifts faintly from the distance, the soft thud of blades, the dull clank of buckets, and for a moment you almost believe you can join them. You even try to stand, but your legs buckle before you make it 2 steps. The world narrows to a point, then blurs into light. You crawl to the wall for shade and sit there, breathing through clenched teeth. The sweat runs down your spine, pooling beneath you, until your clothes cling like a second skin. You remember how the leaf used to make this bearable, how it dulled the hunger, softened the heat, steadied your hands. Without it, everything feels louder, harsher, closer. You can hear the mosquito's wings, the creak of wood underfoot, even the slow rasp of your own breathing. Every sound is an irritation, every heartbeat an accusation. By evening, the fever sets in. It doesn't climb suddenly, it builds quietly, a tide rising under your skin. The world shifts between cold and heat without warning. You press your hands to your arms and feel the skin shiver like a living thing. The old man from the next bunk looks over once, his eyes distant. "Just rest," he says softly, as if the word still has meaning. You laugh, though it comes out as a cough. The laughter feels strange in your throat, like something that doesn't belong there. As night falls, the pain changes shape. It's no longer sharp but deep, woven into every nerve. Your stomach cramps until you can't straighten your body. You bite down on your wrist to keep from screaming, and the taste of salt and iron fills your mouth. You hear footsteps outside and freeze. 2 constables pass the window, their lanterns throwing narrow beams across the floor. You hold your breath until they fade. When you exhale, you feel lightheaded, almost floating. You wonder briefly if you've died, but the pain quickly assures you otherwise. The hours stretch without mercy. Sleep becomes impossible. When you close your eyes, you see flashes of things that can't be real. Your mother standing by the doorway of your childhood home, her hands wet from washing clothes. The overseer's shadow bending over you. A field of trees burning under rain that hisses but never falls. You know none of it is there, but the line between memory and madness has thinned. You reach out and touch the air just to feel something solid. Your hand comes back slick with sweat. Sometime after midnight, the air grows cooler. You can hear the other men muttering in their sleep, whispering prayers in half-remembered languages. Someone recites a verse over and over until the words dissolve into sound. You try to pray too, but the words feel foreign now, heavy in your mouth. Instead, You curse, not loudly, but with conviction. You curse the overseer, the doctor, the constables, the men who cut down the trees, the ones who turned relief into contraband. Mostly, though, you curse yourself. The sound of it feels strange, like spitting into the wind. You roll onto your side, trying to ease the cramps in your belly. The room sways with each breath. A fly lands on your arm, and you lack the strength to brush it away. You stare at it until your vision doubles. Your mind drifts in and out, floating between the barrack and somewhere else entirely. At times you think you hear rain, a soft, steady tapping on the roof. You even smell it, the sharp freshness of wet earth. But when you look up, the ceiling is dry. The sound is only in your head, the mind replaying a memory it can't let go of. You lose track of time. The fever breaks and returns, each wave leaving you weaker. Your throat feels raw, your tongue cracked. The others have gone quiet now. Even their prayers have faded. You realise you're clenching your jaw so tightly, it aches. You force it open and taste blood. Your hands tremble uncontrollably. You press them to your chest to stop the motion, but they keep shaking, tapping a rhythm you can't control. When dawn finally comes, it's hard to tell where night ended. The air is pale, colourless. The first rays of light fall across the barrack floor, revealing the dark stains of sweat that mark where you've been lying. You move to sit up and feel a sharp pain in your mouth. Your lip is swollen, split open. You touch it and your fingers come away red. You must have bitten through it during the night. The blood tastes faintly metallic, almost comforting in its familiarity. You sit there for a long time, listening to the world begin again. The morning bell rings in the distance, but you don't move. The others rise one by one, stepping carefully around you. No one speaks. You watch them go, their silhouettes blurring in the white light. Your hands are still trembling. You try to still them, but the motion only grows worse. The pain hasn't gone. It's merely changed shape, become quieter, more settled. Somewhere in the silence, you realise the worst of the fever has passed. But what remains feels colder, emptier. You return to the fields before your body is ready. The fever has ebbed, but it has left a hollowness that will not lift. When you stand, the world tilts for a moment, as if the ground itself resists your weight. The others are already gone, their silhouettes moving through the mist like ghosts heading toward the trees. You tie the rag at your waist and follow. The air is damp and heavy with rot. Each breath tastes faintly of rubber and rust. The road is soft from last night's rain, swallowing your steps in silence. You move slowly, one foot after the other, your legs stiff with ache. The memory of the leaf haunts every motion. For months it had been your beginning and your end, the spark that carried you through the day. Now the habit lingers without its source. Your jaw still tightens sometimes, working at nothing, as if the body refuses to believe the mercy is gone. You press your tongue to your teeth and taste only salt. The craving hums faintly, like an old wound that has learned to live inside you. When you reach your row, the overseer is waiting. His white shirt is spotless, his face unreadable. He says nothing as you pick up your knife, only watches to see whether you'll falter. You grip the handle until your knuckles whiten and begin to work. The blade feels heavier than it once did, and your hands refuse the old rhythm. The cuts come unevenly, too shallow or too deep. Sap runs in crooked lines, spilling onto the ground. The overseer's eyes narrow, but he doesn't speak. He simply turns his horse and rides on. You exhale when he's gone, though the pressure remains coiled in your chest, like a second heartbeat. The morning drags. Each motion feels like lifting stone. You find yourself reaching instinctively toward your pocket, fingers brushing the worn fabric where your pouch used to be. You stop, ashamed of the gesture. The body remembers long after the mind pretends to forget. You wipe your hands on your trousers and keep cutting. The pain in your shoulders grows sharper, radiating down your spine. The knife slips once, grazing your palm. You stare at the thin line of blood before wrapping it with a scrap of cloth torn from your sleeve. The sting feels distant, almost merciful. At least pain is something real. By midday, the sun burns through the haze. The heat presses down, like a weight you can't set aside. The other workers move in near silence, their faces blank, their steps mechanical. You join them under the sparse shade for the noon break, though the word rest has lost its meaning. Someone hands you a tin bowl of rice, but your stomach rebels after the first bite. You drink instead, the water warm and tasting faintly of metal. The afternoon feels longer than the day before. Your body obeys, but without conviction. You move because stillness invites punishment. The overseer rides past again, jotting notes in his book. You wonder if he writes your name, or only a number. The thought doesn't frighten you anymore. Numbers don't die, they're simply replaced. When the bell finally rings to end the shift, you stand motionless for a moment, too tired to understand what freedom means. Your legs tremble as you turn toward the path. The light has gone golden, the kind that makes the world look gentler than it is. You wipe the sweat from your face and notice the tremor in your hand. It hasn't left you since the withdrawal. It flutters faintly, like a trapped insect beneath the skin. You hide it by clenching your fist. The walk back feels endless. Frogs croak in the ditches, their voices echoing through the twilight. You pass the canal, where you once bathed after work. The water is higher now, opaque with mud, carrying branches from the burned grove. You crouch for a moment and splash your face, hoping the coolness might revive you, but it only makes the ache sharper. The reflection that ripples up from the surface startles you. The hollow eyes, the deep lines etched into your brow. You look away before the image steadies. At the barracks, the air is thick with smoke from cooking fires. A few men murmur quietly over their meals, their voices subdued. You sit near the door, too exhausted to eat. The overseer's dog barks somewhere outside, the sound cutting through the evening stillness. You close your eyes and try to imagine silence, real silence, no overseer, no bells, no orders. But even in your thoughts, the plantation hums. It's there under everything, a vibration in the soil that never stops. When the rain begins, you wash your hands in a tin basin and watch the water darken with dirt. The lantern beside you flickers, its flame mirrored in the rippling surface. You catch your reflection for a moment and barely recognize it. The skin on your face has grown thin and papery. The hollows beneath your eyes seem bottomless. You lift the basin slightly, as if a different angle might show someone younger hiding beneath. But the water only distorts the truth. Inside, the others are already lying down. The coughs come and go, the rhythm as steady as breathing. You sit for a long while on your mat, listening to the rain drum against the roof. Your hands tremble again, small helpless movements you can't control. You press them flat against your knees, willing them to stop. The muscles twitch anyway, as if they belong to someone else. You think of the boy who was beaten for the leaf, of the old man who died in silence, of the stumps behind the canal that will never grow again. For a moment, you envy them. You lie down finally, staring at the ceiling beams slick with condensation. The rain begins before dawn, heavy enough to drown a thought. It falls in sheets that blur the line between sky and earth, soaking through the roof, the mat, the skin. You wake to it, half dreaming, the sound louder than anything inside your head. The barrack smells of damp cloth and mildew. The air tastes faintly of rust. Someone coughs near the door, a deep, rattling sound that never quite finishes. You sit up slowly, feeling every bone argue against movement. Your body still aches from the day before, not from work, but from continuing to exist. Still, when the bell clangs, you rise. You don't think about it. You move because you always have. The yard outside has become a river of mud. The rain hasn't stopped for 3 days, and The ground has given up trying to stay solid. You walk barefoot through the mess, each step making a sound like breath being taken away. The sky's grey, the kind that feels permanent. The overseer stands beneath a tarp near the field, his hat dripping, his expression one of practiced irritation. He doesn't need to shout. Everyone knows the rules. The trees still bleed even when the sky does. You join the line of men cutting through the storm. The knife slips easily through the bark, the sap mixing with rain as it runs down the trunk. It's colder than usual, and your fingers feel slow, clumsy. The world has turned the colour of tin, the soil, the sky, even the men bent double in the distance. The wind rises and flattens the rain against your face. You blink but keep working. There's nothing else to do. The weakness comes gradually. At first it's just dizziness, the kind that follows too little food or too much heat. Then your knees begin to shake, the muscles fluttering without warning. You stop to catch your breath, but the air refuses to fill your lungs. The noise of the rain swells, echoing inside your head like the ocean. You take another step, and the world tilts sharply. The knife falls from your hand. You wake face down in the mud. For a moment, you don't know where you are. The sky's a blur and rain runs into your eyes, cold and stinging. Someone shouts your name, or maybe not your name, just a sound meant to resemble one. Hands grip your arm and pull you upright. The foreman's face swims into view, his mouth moving, but lost beneath the roar of rain. You can make out only a few words: lazy, useless, docked pay. He drags you toward the edge of the path, his boots splattering mud across your chest. You try to stand, to explain, but your legs fold again. He lets you drop with a grunt of disgust. The rain takes care of the rest, washing the mud back over you as if you were never there. When you wake again, it's afternoon. The storm hasn't let up. You're lying on your mat, soaked and shivering. Someone must have carried you back, though no one admits to it. The others keep their eyes averted. The barrack feels smaller than usual, as though the air itself has thickened with fatigue. You can hear the sound of dripping water in the corner, steady and rhythmic. The pain in your chest pulses with it. The old man in the next bunk, one of the few who still speaks to you, sits beside you with a folded cloth in his hand. He wrings it out and presses it to your forehead. "Fever again," he mutters. His voice sounds far away. From somewhere deeper in the barrack, another man stirs and pulls something from under his mat. He crosses the room and kneels beside you. When he opens his hand, you see it. A single green leaf, wilted but whole. You stare at it for a long moment. You hadn't seen one since the burning. You thought they were all gone. The man says nothing, just nods once, a gesture of quiet understanding. Your fingers hesitate before taking it. It feels lighter than you remember, fragile, as though the rain could erase it if you blinked. You bring it to your lips and bite down. The taste is different, not the sharp bitterness you once knew, but something faint, stale, almost sweet. You wait for the old rush, the warmth that used to crawl through your limbs, but nothing comes. The body has forgotten how to listen. You chew until the leaf dissolves into pulp, but all it leaves behind is silence. The man who gave it to you watches for a moment, then looks away. He doesn't ask how it feels. He doesn't need to. You nod to him weakly, though even that small motion drains you. The fever deepens, spreading warmth where the leaf could not. You close your eyes and listen to the rain. It hits the roof in 1,000 small rhythms, uneven and endless, filling the space between heartbeats. You find comfort in it, not because it soothes, but because it sounds like something larger than you, something that will continue when you stop. Your breath comes slower now. Each inhale feels like wading through thick water. The mat beneath you is damp, but you're too tired to move. You think of the first time you tasted the leaf, when it had felt like salvation. You think of the fields, the rows of trees bleeding sap that looked like milk. You think of the sea you crossed to get here, the promise that work would make you free. The memory feels distant, almost irrelevant. What remains is the sound of rain and the steady, patient rhythm of the drip in the corner. The old man presses the cloth to your head again, but the effort seems to tire him more than it helps you. He sighs and sits back. You want to thank him, but the words don't form. Your lips move soundlessly. He pats your shoulder and mutters a prayer. The others pretend to sleep. The storm outside grows heavier, the wind bending the palm leaves until they slap against the roof. You wonder if the trees can feel it too, if they notice when one of you falls. Your breathing slows, the spaces between each inhale widening. You try to focus on the rain, on its constancy, its indifference. Somewhere beneath the noise, you can hear the plantation still humming, the sap dripping into cups, the overseer's whistle faint in the distance. The work continues. It always does. The rain does not stop through the night. It softens near dawn, thinning to a steady whisper, but the air inside the barrack remains heavy and wet. The world feels far away now, muffled by fever and fatigue. You can no longer tell if your eyes are open or closed. The same grey light presses against them either way. When you breathe, your chest crackles faintly, as though something deep inside has turned to water. You try to move your hand, but it no longer answers. The thought comes to you slowly, not as fear, but as observation. The body is beginning to forget itself. You hear footsteps near your mat, voices low and uncertain. Someone touches your shoulder, checking if you are awake. You are, though the word has lost meaning. The old man murmurs a prayer in Tamil, his voice hoarse and tired. He asks for mercy, not for you exactly, but for the soul that will soon be leaving. You want to thank him, to tell him it's all right, that the worst has already passed, but your mouth won't open. The effort would cost more air than you have left. The morning bell rings outside, a hollow clang swallowed by rain. The men rise one by one, coughing, groaning, pulling on damp clothes. They step around you carefully, not out of reverence, but routine. Death here is common, part of the workday. The overseer will expect full numbers by the time the sun lifts. The old man lingers a moment longer, then covers your chest with a thin sheet. He leaves his bowl of rice by your side, the gesture of someone who still remembers what kindness used to feel like. Then he goes to the fields with the rest. When the door shuts, the room is left to the insects and the sound of dripping water. You stare at the rafters, counting the slow rhythm of the leaks. The rain sounds softer now, farther away. You imagine the trees outside, their trunks gleaming with sap, the cups filling one slow drop at a time. For a moment you think you can smell it, that strange mixture of sweetness and rot. You picture the overseer walking through the rows, his boots clean despite the mud, his voice rising above the labour. Everything continues, as it always does. You realise with a kind of dull wonder that the plantation will go on breathing long after you stop. Your vision narrows. The roof above you blurs into shapes, shadows that shift and bend until they no longer make sense. The sound of rain fades, replaced by something quieter, almost human. A voice, perhaps, or the echo of one. It might be your mother's. You remember her standing at the doorway of your childhood home, her hands still wet from washing. She tells you to eat, to rest, to come inside before the storm. You try to answer, but the memory moves away faster than you can follow. You breathe once more, shallow and uneven, and the pain breaks apart into nothing. The last sound you hear is the slow, patient dripping of water somewhere beyond your head. When the others return that evening, the rain has stopped. The air smells of smoke from the kitchen fires and the faint sweetness of rubber. The old man sees you first. He doesn't call out. He stands quietly, watching the stillness of your body, and then steps outside to fetch the foreman. The overseer arrives a few minutes later, accompanied by 2 guards. He looks at you briefly, without expression, then checks his watch. "Write it down," he tells the clerk. Number 76. Dead. The clerk nods, opens the ledger, and draws a single line through your name. Ink bleeds across the paper, dark and final. A new line waits below it, blank but ready. They carry your body out at dusk, wrapped in a sack that once held rice. The ground outside is still soft from the storm, swallowing their steps as they walk. No prayer follows, no ceremony, only the sound of shovels cutting into mud. The pit is shallow, the soil dark and slick. A wooden tag bearing your number is hammered into the earth beside you. By morning, the ink will have begun to fade. Inside the barrack, your mat is dragged to the doorway. The old man watches as a guard douses it with kerosene and sets it alight. The flame catches quickly, curling the edges until they crumble into ash. Smoke rises through the broken roof, carrying the last smell of sweat and sickness out into the open air. The guard kicks the embers aside and leaves without a word. By the time the bell rings again, a new recruit has arrived to claim the empty space. He unrolls his blanket, sets down his bowl, and lies on the same patch of floor as though it had never belonged to anyone else. In the payroll office, the clerk rewrites the week's roster. Your number has been reassigned. The column beside it reads, "Fit for work." The overseer signs the page, blotting a small drop of ink with the edge of his thumb. Outside his window, the rain begins again, soft and steady, washing the soot from the yard. The plantation hums through the night. The knives keep cutting. The sap keeps dripping. The cups keep filling. In the morning, the overseer will walk the rows and the ledger will tell him that all is well. The men will sweat and cough and keep moving, their faces turned toward the same indifferent sun. No one will speak your name. No one will remember there was a name to speak. Beyond the fence in the damp, untended soil, where the jungle begins again, something green pushes through the mud. A single leaf, veined and stubborn, growing from a root the fire didn't reach. It sways gently in the wind, gathering drops of rain that glisten like milk before falling back to earth. The empire doesn't notice, but the land does. The land remembers everything. And that brings us to the end of tonight's story. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment with another forgotten corner of history you'd like explored next. If you'd like early access to more of these quiet descents into forgotten history, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. If you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps more people find their way to these stories. And special thanks to the supporters who make this show possible, including our chroniclers, Andrew S. and Rich Davis. Sleep well.